When I look back at my childhood from the vast age of 61, I see that the line from what my first impulse to the career that I've ended up has been very, very clear. In that when I was 7, I've got photographs of making theatres out of shoeboxes with cutouts and made scenery, and then put cutouts from magazines on lollipop sticks and used those as like very crude puppets. Then I made hand puppets, then I got Pelham string puppets every year for Christmas and birthday, and I had a full-sized marionette theatre in my parents' garage, and was in every school play that I could possibly in, and involved in the Swaziland Theatre Club that was where I grew up. So there's no, where that impulse came from in the first place, I have no idea, because I have no theatrical roots in my family whatsoever. So when I look back on that, it's absolutely clear that that's what I wanted to do. But because of where I grew up, it seemed as ludicrous as saying that you wanted to be an astronaut. When they landed on the moon in 1969 when I was 12, and I said I wanted to be an actor, people go, yeah. So the fact that I then went to drama school and university and then became a professional actor is the fulfillment of what I had always wanted to do. But when you're a kid, I don't know that you have such a clear idea, but looking back, as I've just said, the line is very clear. I think almost every actor I know has this experience where it's like no is invisibly tattooed on people's heads. They go, we don't want you, we're not going to give you the job, we're not going to give you the break or the chance. And once you accept that no is the default mode that people go into, and you get used to that, you go, well, I'm going to keep trying until you break through, until somebody says yes. I also had the great good fortune of having a music/English teacher called Bunny Barnes, who died 10 years ago, at the age of 89, who throughout my childhood, when my parents were, I think, pretty taken aback that I wanted to become an actor, she gave me moral support and encouragement. And having one person that believes in you is invaluable. And the letters that we exchanged once I was an adult, I go back to fairly frequently, because her advice and just somebody that goes, yes, you can do it, is incredibly powerful. When I had completed drama school training in university, this professor gave the end of year assessment of what he thought your career prospects were as professionally as possible. And he said, you look too weird to really make it as an actor, in my opinion. He said, you've shown real talent as a director and a writer. I think that is going to be the path of your career. So because I respected him and admired him, I thought, well, that is maybe what is going to happen. So when I finally got, the first movie role that I ever got in 1986, playing Withnail in Withnail and I, all of his advice came to haunt me, in that every single review that I remember reading talked about the fact that I had lantern-jawed, tombstone-featured, sepulchral, bucket face. It was concentrated on what I looked like, and I thought, oh, that's exactly what the professor had told me. What he got wrong, mercifully for me, is that I have had and continue to have a career as a paid actor, rather than being a director, although I have done that as well. When I got Withnail in 1986, I'd been unemployed for 9 months. So your self-esteem is absolutely annihilated as an actor, because if you're not working, then you feel like you have no identity. So being cast to play a bitter, out-of-work actor, having been embittered and out of work for 9 months, was a sort of synchronicity of life experience and then playing this character. Certainly this character's self-destruct button and sense of entitlement is not what I feel that I have, but it's the irony of having played an unemployed actor, which has led to almost every single job I've had since. including this Melissa McCarthy film that I'm in at the moment, Can You Ever Forgive Me, as a result of being in that film 32 years ago, is something that still amuses me that it's had that fallout effect, really. When we made the film, nobody had any idea that it might be a success because it had a title that people said was unpronounceable. It had no women, no car chases. Crocodile Dundee was the big hit of 1986 while we were shooting this film up in Cumbria. And there was nobody famous in it. And they said, well, and there was no plot to speak of. So on paper, the wisdom was that it would never get released. So I thought, well, if maybe just one or two people see it, then maybe I'll get further employment. And the other thing that I'm very often asked is how much of it was improvised, and there was not a single word or comma or apostrophe that wasn't scripted by Bruce Robinson, who wrote and directed it. And he was and remains a complete stickler for that, because he said, if I spent years, working my guts out to get the dialogue exactly as I want them, I will not have some actor coming along and going, oh, I'm just going to make up or I'm going to improvise. So he was very, very script specific about that. I think first and foremost what draws you to any project is the quality of the script, even though I have been, hand on heart, been in Spice World the movie, because my 8-year-old daughter was absolutely obsessed that I work with them because she could then meet them, and they were absolutely amazing. And we had a great time on it because a lot of it was improvised. So that was hugely enjoyable for, to do as a job. But being asked to do something different to the thing that you've just done is always what you hope is going to happen, so that you don't get locked into only playing one kind of part. And essentially, I've had I suppose what you call a journeyman actor's career, in that I've had some fame and recognition, but I've not had the kind of career where some people only get to play one kind of part, and that's what they're forced to do. And I worked on a disastrous movie called Hudson Hawk 30 years ago with Bruce Willis, and he said to me, why are you prepared to play people who are sexually deviant or morally this or whatever? He said, because I play heroes. And I said, do you not find that limiting or dull in any way? And he looked at me as though I was mentally retarded and said, no, that's what I like to play. But he said, you English guys are prepared to play people who are unsympathetic or weird or oddball or whatever. And I said, but that's what makes it interesting. Otherwise, you're just doing the same thing, aren't you? And he said, well, I earn a lot of money doing that, and I couldn't argue with that. The real person that I play, called Jack Hawk in Can You Ever Forgive Me, opposite Melissa McCarthy, who plays Lee Israel, I never met anybody that knew him. All of his friends had died of AIDS in the mid-90s, and he died of AIDS in 1994. Very little was known about Lee Israel herself, because she was a very reclusive and private writer. I do have a biography that she'd written of this American actress from the 1940s called Tallulah Bankhead. And so I have her on my shelf as, Tallulah Bankhead by Lee Israel. But because she was a biographer who's used her talent to subsume herself so that she wasn't at the forefront of trying to be famous in her own right, I didn't know anything about her life and had no idea, as most people didn't seem to, that the fact that she became a literary forger of famous dead writers' work out of economic necessity. And she falls in collusion with Jack Hawk, who is an alcoholic, petty thief, drug dealer, who'd been in jail for a couple of years. I did know this about him, because he held up a taxi driver at knife point, and he was HIV positive by the time they met. And they fall into this love-hate platonic relationship because he's a gay man and she's a lesbian writer, a lesbian woman. And it goes through all the vicissitudes of friendship, in that the initial sort of honeymoon followed by loyalty phase of friendship is then followed by the inevitable betrayal, and then the reconciliation just before he dies because Lee Israel asks Jack for permission to write the story which becomes Can You Ever Forgive Me?